Affido l'Italia, la mia e la vostra vita al cuore immacolato. A Catholic politician under attack this week from the Vatican for being too Catholic in public. The Sham-Is-On Synod gears up for apostasy. And the Church of Vatican II, generally speaking, continues to auto-destruct. Given the universal dumpster fire that is the Second Vatican Council, why is anyone on earth still defending this thing? All that and more tonight from the editor's desk. Hello again, ladies and gentlemen. Michael Matt coming to you once again from the offices of the Remnant newspaper. Matteo Salvini is out of power tonight, at least for the moment. The former deputy prime minister of Italy was just too darn Catholic, evidently, and now he's paid the price for it. So what happened? Well, Salvini evidently ticked off way too many powerful people, including the folks running the Vatican, of course. The guy refused to back away from his rosary crusade, even when the outgoing prime minister of Italy, Giuseppe Conte, was practically scolding Salvini for being irresponsible and reckless when he held up his rosary in front of Parliament. Salvini, for his part, he responded by, you guessed it, pulling out his rosary once again and kissing it in front of God and everybody. Check this out.
Di responsabilità dovrebbe evitare durante I comizi di accostare agli slogan politici I simboli religiosi.
You just gotta love this guy, right? Oh my gosh, yeah, I mean, that is just, it takes guts, you know, and the fact that he had his rosary with him is kind of interesting. I doubt that he anticipated that he was going to be scolded for holding it up, and he just pulls it out like he's always got it. I love this guy. By the way, let's nail one point down. And when it comes to Salvini, we made this point, 3 years ago, I guess now, with Trump. And we're not talking about the man, his personal life. We're not vouching for that. We're not saying that Salvini is certainly is a daily communicant and whatever. What's important to all of us, no matter what we think of Salvini, the man, what's important to us is the politician. And the politician is out there saying that pro-God, pro-family, and pro-Christianity is going to win elections in Europe. And that's a stunning development. These are the very things, of course, which the New World Order, the United Nations, the Soros crowd, they've been desperate to destroy these things for a long time. And it's really interesting now that it's become politically expedient to bring them back to the forefront. The Rosary, Our Lady, Christianity. This is really, really fascinating to us as traditional Catholics especially. Because whatever you say, again, if it's politics as usual, well, he's saying the same sort of things that we're saying. We got to bring God back. We have to bring order and sanity back. We have to call on Our Lady to intercede on behalf of our states now because the devil's running the show. And remember this speech? We did this on a show a few months ago. This was an amazing speech by Salvini. Let's check it out. We entrust ourselves to the 6 patrons of Europe, to St. Benedict of Norcia, to St. Bridget of Sweden, to St. Catherine of Siena, to St. Cyril and Methodius, to St. Teresa Benedetta of the Cross. We rely on them, and we entrust to them the destiny, the future, the peace, and the prosperity of our peoples. But the really interesting thing is, obviously, you can't do this in the European Union anymore and get away with it, at least not yet. But the ones who were most ticked off by it, evidently, were Pope Francis and his little Church of Accompaniment crowd. Vatican Secretary of State, Cardinal Pietro Parolin, referring to Salvini, he said, quote, God is for everyone, and invoking him for yourself is always very dangerous, end quote. Not sure. I have no idea where he comes up with it, but there you go. So that was a little spank, and that's the Secretary of State. That's a big deal. Father Antonio Spadaro, who's a close Vatican confidant to Pope Francis, he weighs in as well. There are those who in electoral campaigns are using God and saints. Now, this exploitation of religion seems to know no decency. And then speaking on something called Newsbook Hour, Malta's Bishop Mario Gretsch said, this is good. I don't know if you saw this one, but I like this one. He said, quote, seeing Salvini holding rosary beads hurt me, and it's a clear exploitation of the teachings of the Catholic Church. It hurt him. On some level, yeah, it hurt him. And this is really particularly ironic coming from Gretsch. This is the guy who told Television Malta last year that he welcomed gay unions in Catholic Malta with great satisfaction.
What does that mean?
Satisfaction? What? Yeah, I'm not even going to go there. But you might remember this guy. It shouldn't come as a surprise if you'll remember this guy, Bishop Gretsch, and his buddy, Archbishop Charles Scicluna of Malta, who jumped out early in support of Pope Francis's Amoris Laetitia, telling Maltese Catholics that divorced and remarried Catholics could not be refused communion if they discerned that they were at peace with God. Which is pretty convenient. Imagine what could you do with that? I mean, any sin that comes along, you decide God's okay with it. And
You're at peace.
at peace. Yeah, so it's all good. Good to know. It really, I mean, we laugh, but my gosh, where do these guys get this stuff? I just don't know. And all of these churchmen now, they all united as one, with una voce for a change, not against abortion in Europe, not against gay marriage, but against Matteo Salvini and his rosary campaign and his defense of Catholic Italy's sovereignty. That was his big crime. Eventually, of course, all of this paid off. That's a lot of power that was leveled against Salvini. And even though now Salvini remains confident that the Italians are going to see through this attack, that he'll eventually be prime minister whenever the vote finally happens, for the moment, he's been pushed back. And now he's the leader of the minority party or the opposition party. We'll have to see what happens. But once again, what are we seeing here? Once again, Pope Francis and company are behind the scenes manipulating elections. This is becoming something of a habit. Some say they even did it when it came to, a papal conclave recently. I wouldn't know anything about that, but that's that's what they say. Anyway, and then he goes out and lectures people about, don't behave like a mafioso, and he's behaving like this. It's unbelievable. So that's politics. And now turning to religion. The situation in the church is even worse, as we all now brace for the Pan-Amazon Synod, October 6th through the 27th, coming up. Two cardinals have sent letters to the College of Cardinals just a few weeks ago now, warning that the Sham-Is-On Synod could easily lead to something worse than the Arian heresy. On October 28th, Cardinal Walter Brandmuller, God bless his heart and soul, noted and warned that, quote, some points of the Synod's Instrumentum Laboris seem not only in dissonance with respect to the authentic teaching of the Church, but even contrary to it. Brandmuller's 90 years old. I wonder where everybody else is. Why are they letting this 90-year-old hero do all the work? I'm not sure. But he went on in the same letter and he says, quote, with all this has been created a situation never before seen in the Church's history, not even during the Arian crisis of the 4th and 5th century, end quote, which is something we've been saying here at the Remnant for a long time, that the crisis in the Church since Vatican II is without precedent. There is no precedent. It's worse than the Arian heresy. I think that's very true. Now, Cardinal Burke, again, weighed in on this. He sent a letter of his own in which he said that he, quote, shares completely the deep concerns of Cardinal Brandmuller, the truth that God has revealed himself through the mystery of the incarnation of the Son of God is obscured, if not denied, in the Synod's working document. I mean, we can't get used to this stuff. I mean, this is unbelievable history-making stuff. It's so incredible that we're even seeing this happen, and that maybe we're getting a little punch drunk and thinking, yeah, well, it's just another day in the Church of Vatican II. But really, we got to think about this. This isn't the remnant talking. This isn't some sort of rad-trad Jansenistic hot flash. These are two cardinals of the Catholic Church, one of whom thinks that Pope Francis's synod promises to attack the hierarchical sacramental structure and apostolic tradition of the Church, and the other one who says that the synod portends an apostasy from the Catholic faith. Welcome to the Church of Vatican II. This is the trajectory that Vatican II has put the Church on for the past 50 years. Cardinal Burke is quite right. This is apostasy. And meanwhile, down at the street level, where all of us are, as we pointed out last show, 70% of Catholics in America have lost the faith. Now remember, Mass attendance is actually a little higher in this country. And yet 70% of our co-religionists have lost the faith since Vatican II. Let's just put that in perspective, shall we? That's 50 million American Catholics no longer believe in the real presence of Christ in the Eucharist. In other words, 50 million Catholics are no longer Catholic. 50 million. Now, whose fault is this? Whose fault is all of this? Two of the four popes who were in charge during this process of massive apostasy in the Church, two of them are now saints, canonized by the Church of Vatican II. Don't you think that's just a little bit suspicious? That they oversaw the great apostasy and then for some reason, well, otherwise they did a heck of a job. Let's canonize them. You see what's going on here? They're canonizing the revolution. For them, there is no 1,965 years of Catholic history. The church started in 1965. That's all that matters. And they're going to destroy the church by changing the church and making the church in the image and likeness of modernism. In the image and likeness of modernists, the very people that Pope St. Pius X condemned back in 1907, well over 100 years ago. These people have been working to destroy the church. And so what's happening as a result of this? We're living through it. The Novus Ordo Church is dying before our eyes, friends. And we're still celebrating the springtime of Vatican II like crazy people. We're living through the effects of Vatican II. And again, some of you I know, some of you can't find the traditional Latin Mass. Please don't let these videos polarize you. We're all in this together. If you don't go to the Latin Mass, you can't find one, or you're just not up to speed on what that debate's all about, please understand that we're all victims of this. So if you're going to a new Mass and you understand there's something wrong here, well, you're my brother, and we need to pray for each other and try to get through this. This is not about condemning people who don't agree with us, but we simply have to admit the obvious. Something has gone very, very wrong in the church, as evidenced by a video such as this one.
Magsitayo na po ang lahat.
Manalangin tayo. Ama namin mapagmahal, sa banal na pakikinabang, si Kristo ay aming pinagsaluhan. Hinihiling namin kami ay maging katulad niya sa langit, pakundangan sa kanyang pagiging aming kaparis bilang tagapamagitan, kasama ng Espiritu Santo, magpasawalang hanggan.
Amen. Magsipo muna po saglit para sa ilang mga anunsyo. The music ministry of the National Shrine of Our Lady of Lourdes.
It's just, words fail. What do you say about something like that? It's happening in a Catholic church. The Blessed Sacrament just sort of thrown all over the floor. I realize he didn't mean to throw it on the floor. What's he doing back there, this person? Why are they messing around with the ciborium while the priest is preaching? What is going on? Why had lay people up there to begin with? When I was a kid, we were altar boys, altar servers. We could not even touch the sacred vessels. We couldn't move the ciborium. We couldn't move the chalice. That was only for the consecrated hands of the priest. You see, these little things have been going for a long time. Now you got clowns up there messing around in the tabernacle, lay people, and throwing our Lord all over the floor. He didn't mean to. That's beside the point. What's he doing up there? What's happening in the Novus Ordo? You see, and there's any number of examples of that sort of thing going on. As I said, 50 million Catholics no longer believe in it anyway. So, to conclude, last week we talked about, the idea of uniting the clans. I just can't emphasize this enough, and thank you so much for all of the comments and feedback that we've gotten on this. I know it's controversial, and I know there's been a lot of misunderstandings, but I'm here to double down again on this. We need to unite the clans, and I've had support from priests and from lay people literally all over the world on this. I think a lot of people were saying, yes, it is time that we do whatever we possibly can to withstand the storm all around us, to make it through together. I don't think we can wait around any longer on this. The laity, and maybe it's not going to be the priests, maybe it's not going to be the orders and the fraternities that everybody's been talking about. Maybe it's just up to us. Just the laity need to unite the clans. And what is this idea of uniting the clans? All it is really nothing more than all of us doing the right thing, all of us following the dictates of Christian charity. That's all I'm asking. I don't think there's any way we can doubt that this is what God wants. We're just not in positions to understand all the nuances of all the different arguments, all between the various factions of traditional Catholicism. But one thing we know is we know something about Christian charity. We need to love each other, need to help each other, and stop anathematizing each other, right? Just disband the circular firing squad, right? Just stop. Stop anathematizing each other. Stop condemning those who don't park their car in the same parking lot that you do on Sunday morning. You see, it's an easy thing to do. You don't have to get along. We're not looking for, all of us to hold hands and go to the same mass center and sing John Lennon ditties about all we are saying is give peace a chance. That's not what I'm saying. Not at all. But we don't have to hate each other. We can try to help each other move forward here. You see, don't you get it? Because we don't have time for anything else. The human element of the Church of Vatican II, again, the human element of the Church, not the divine element, which is pure and inviolate, But the human element of the church right now, significant percentages of it anyway, are trying to destroy the liturgy and the practice and the traditions of the church as she existed for almost 2,000 years. It's a dangerous moment for all of us. All around us, people everywhere are losing the faith. And we got to make sure it doesn't happen to us. Because the moment that you say it's not going to happen to me, that's when you become most vulnerable, I would imagine, when it comes to temptations and it comes to loss of faith and despair and all of that. So we need to stand with all the Catholics that we possibly can. Catholics who can still say the creed together and mean it, we need to stand with them, first of all. Because in a few years, if this keeps up, there's not going to be many of those left, you see? So we got to stop defending the indefensible at the same time. Once we kind of get together, we got to stop defending the indefensible. Stop defending the new Mass. And I really don't care if you don't like Latin. It really doesn't have anything to do with preference. The new Mass has failed to safeguard the deposit of the faith. It really doesn't matter about the language so much as what's happened since it's been vernacularized, since it's been changed, since it's been Protestantized. The faith itself has suffered, and suffered a great deal. Again, 50 million Catholics no longer believe in the real presence. So we can see the fruits of this thing. So we can't defend it anymore. And for God's sake, finally, stop defending the Second Vatican disaster, the Second Vatican Council.
The Second Vatican Council is an immense gift for the Church and for the world, with enormous richness capable of propelling and guiding the lives of Catholics and of all men and women of the third millennium of the faith.
Radiant risen from the water.
Took bread, gave it to his disciples and said, "Take this, all of you, and eat it."
Stop defending it. It cannot be defended anymore. I'm not talking about the intentions of the original Council Fathers. I'm sure many of them had very good intentions. But now looking back 50 years later with 20/20 hindsight, we can see what happened. And what happened was that Vatican II was infiltrated, friends. It was taken over. And its diabolical spirit is tearing the church in half right now. While the greatest champions of Vatican II, as we just talked about, are out there working for the establishment of a new world order based not on the kingship of Christ, but on the Freemasonic brotherhood of man. Now, I know we can't do much about this as lay people. We can't do much in the face of this disaster, of this crisis of belief, of this apostasy. But we have to make sure that the old faith survives in us, that it survives in our children until God restores his church, and he will in his time. Our job now is to keep the faith. So last week we started a hashtag. We started the hashtag Unite the Clans, which again, I can't stress enough. We need to make that happen. This week, let's start another one. What the heck? I don't know much about Twitter anyway. So let's start another hashtag. This week, we're going to start hashtag to hell with Vatican II. Why? Because the thing has been an unmitigated disaster. By every measurable indicator, a disaster. Millions have simply left the church since the Second Vatican Council closed in 1965. The old nuns are all gone, right? Except for the beautiful young traditional Catholic orders of nuns are all full of young women. Otherwise, Catholic nuns are in their 80s, or they're dead, or they've left, or they're lesbians, or whatever. They're gone. The churches, Catholic churches, closing down everywhere. Drive through any city in America, you can see shuttered churches. You see churches sold to Muslims, or using them as mosques, or Pizza Huts, as apartment complexes, right? Closing the churches by the hundreds, by the thousands. The Catholic schools that used to dot the neighborhoods and retain some sanity and educated kids and sent them into the world to be contributors are gone. Those schools are gone. Even the Catholic hospitals have all but vanished since Vatican II, right? You know, the Church of Vatican II is all they do is talk about stuff. They talk about the poor and taking care of the poor. All they do is talk about. The old church, it said hospitals and orphanages and soup kitchens up all over the world. They actually went out and did something about the poor. The Church of Vatican II, for the most part, just talks about nothing but dialogue and raise more money and then speak in funny voices about stuff. Have you noticed this? They're always saying things like encounter and journey and worship spaces and more money and closing more churches and covering for more pedophiles and perverts, and on it goes. And what the heck are we doing? Why are we putting up with this? Why are we standing back and watching as these marauders destroy the church? The most civilizing influence in society. They're destroying it. Now, what's the Pope doing in the face of all this? Well, as we just saw, he's actively undermining the few politicians left in the world today who are not stooges of the New World Order. He's telling us to turn off our air conditioners, get those plastic straws out of the ocean because it's not good for the dolphins. Let public adulterers come back to the sacraments because that shows everybody how merciful I am and how unmerciful the church was for 1,965 years. And, of course, inform the world that God wills all religions and that what he really wants right now is a brotherhood of man. Like the Freemasons have been trying to get for 3 centuries.
Dio permette che ci siano tante religioni, ma Dio ha voluto permettere questo. Ha voluto permettere questa realtà. Ci sono tante religioni che alcuni nascono dalla cultura, ma sempre guardano il cielo, guardano Dio. Ma quello che Dio vuole è la fratellanza fra noi.
God help us, friends. When I say unite the clans, I mean, really, we need to do this. This is it. We need to send a message to the Vatican and to history itself that not all Catholics apostatize after Vatican II, and most importantly, we have to make sure we don't apostatize like everyone else seems to be doing. We're still here, and we intend to go to our graves defending the faith and the Mass, the faith and the liturgy of St. Thomas Aquinas, of St. Thomas More, of St. Augustine, of St. Athanasius, of St. Pius X, 11th, and 12th, of all the Cristeros, the Mass and the faith of little Maria Goretti, the Mass and the faith of Bernadette, of all the saints. You see, they were all traditional Catholics, friends. They all knew only the Latin Mass, and they weren't, especially these little girls I'm referring to, these little saints, they weren't linguists, they weren't Latinists, but somehow they figured it out. And they learned to love the old Latin Mass, and the old Latin Mass took care of them, protected them, made saints of them, you see? So what happened? What happened to all that? What happened to the church of these little saints and these martyrs and the Cristeros and the Vendeans and the virgins and, for that matter, 260 out of 266 popes? What happened to that faith? What happened to the faith that built Western civilization? What happened to the faith that built the great cathedrals of Europe? What happened to the faith that brought the light of Christ literally to the 4 corners of the earth? So in love with mankind and with doing the right thing for our fellow human beings was the church that she literally sent her best and her brightest to the 4 corners of the earth, risking their lives to tell the world about Jesus Christ and his church. What happened? What happened to the faith of our grandmothers and our grandfathers? What happened to the faith of our childhood even? You see what they've done? Because what happened? Vatican II, friends. The revolution of Vatican II, and as I've said before, it started long before Vatican II, but the whole revolution came out of the closet in the 1960s at the Second Vatican Council. That's what happened to the faith. They set out to destroy it, and they're succeeding. It was a coup d'église. It was the greatest assault on the mystical body of Christ in history. When I was a child, a little boy, catechism class with old Monsignor Duran, the pastor who baptized me, he used to say that the only person that it was okay for us kids to say, go to hell to, is the devil. He said, if you want to say to the devil, you go to hell, go right ahead. It's okay. You can say it to him and only to him, because that's where he belongs. So I'm sorry, but when I look back now, over the past 50 years, and I'm sure many of you feel this way, when we look back after the close of the Second Vatican Council, with its new Mass, and all the destruction, all the divided families, all the loss of beautiful cultural and ritual experiences that we all had, we look back at the loss of faith and the worldwide apostasy. Question for you. In the face of all that, looking back, who other than the devil himself is the real winner here? What has Vatican II done for any of us? What's it done for the church? Why would any of us defend it? I think my old pastor was probably right. I think it's time for the devil to go to hell. I think it's time we tell the devil to take his infernal council, the Second Vatican Council, with him right back to hell where it belongs. So hashtag to hell with Vatican II. It seems like a really good idea to me. I say let's do it. Let's make it trend. To hell with Vatican II. I'm Michael Matt for Rendon TV, and we'll see you next time.